A temporary job, a guarded billionaire, and a trail of anonymous love letters. When secrets surface and past betrayals return, Raina must decide if trust is enough to risk everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. Raina Holloway stared at her reflection in the elevator's mirrored wall, straightening her simple navy blazer. Her hands trembled slightly as the numbers climbed toward the top floor of Ward Enterprises. This was her chance, a 3-month temporary position as personal assistant to Cassian Ward himself. The pay for these 3 months alone would cover 6 months of her mother's medical bills. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "Just be invisible, do the job, don't mess up." The elevator doors opened to reveal a sleek reception area where a perfectly polished woman sat behind a curved desk. "Raina Holloway, Mr. Ward's temp?" The receptionist looked her up and down with thinly veiled judgment. "Melissa will show you to your desk." A young woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper bob appeared. "Follow me, and try to keep up." Melissa walked briskly, rattling off information as they moved through the office. "Mr. Ward arrives at 7:30 a.m. sharp. Coffee, black, no sugar, must. Be on his desk by 7:25. He doesn't do small talk. Don't ask personal questions. Don't offer opinions unless specifically asked. His schedule is sacred. No changes without his direct approval." Raina nodded, mentally recording every detail. "This is your workstation," Melissa said, pointing to a desk outside a set of frosted glass doors. "I'm leaving for my sister's wedding in Bali tomorrow. You'll have 3 months to not screw this up while I'm gone." Melissa dumped a heavy binder on the desk. "Everything you need to know is in here. Read it today, all of it." "I will," Raina promised. "Thank you for the..." But Melissa was already walking away, phone to her ear. Raina sat down at her new desk, running her fingers along the smooth surface. This wasn't just a job. This was survival. The glass doors suddenly opened, and the office fell silent. Cassian Ward strode in, tall and imposing in a perfectly tailored suit. His dark hair was precisely cut, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes that caught Raina's attention, steel gray and utterly unreadable. Everyone seemed to shrink as he passed. Without looking at anyone, he approached Raina's desk. "Miss Holloway." His voice was deep, clipped. Not a question, but a statement. Raina stood quickly. "Yes, Mr. Ward. You're my temporary assistant." "Yes, sir. Follow me." Raina grabbed a notepad and pen, following him into his office, a minimalist space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Melissa briefed you." He didn't look at her as he sat behind his desk. "Yes, sir. She gave me the manual. I'll have it memorized by tomorrow." That made him look up, his expression revealing nothing. "Today would be better. Then I'll have it memorized by the end of the day," Raina said simply. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps. He gave her a curt nod. "I have 3 calls this morning. The Richardson acquisition needs to be finalized. Legal needs the Pearson contracts by noon." He rattled off a dozen more tasks in quick succession. Raina wrote everything down, not missing a beat. When he finished, she nodded. "I'll take care of it right away, Mr. Ward." He studied her for a moment. "Most people look overwhelmed by now." "I'm a quick learner, sir." She didn't add that she'd spent her whole life learning to make other people's lives easier, her alcoholic fathers, her sick mothers, her series of demanding bosses. "We'll see." He turned to his computer, a clear dismissal. The day passed in a blur. Raina mastered the phone system, reorganized his calendar for maximum efficiency, and had the Pearson contracts on his desk 30 minutes. Before deadline, she answered emails, screened calls, and absorbed the entire manual during her lunch break, which she took at her desk, a sandwich in one hand and the binder in the other. At 7:15 p.m., long after most employees had left, Raina knocked softly on Cassian's door. "Enter," came the curt reply. She stepped inside. "Is there anything else you need before I leave, Mr. Ward?" He looked up from his computer, seeming almost surprised to see her still there. "No." Raina nodded and turned to leave. "Miss Holloway." She turned back. "Yes, sir?" "You did adequately today." From him, she suspected that was high praise. "Thank you, Mr. Ward. I'll be better tomorrow." Again, that flicker in his eyes. "Good night." "Good night, sir." The next morning, Rayner arrived at 7 a.m. She had Cassian's coffee on his desk by 7:15, his morning briefing papers arranged precisely how she'd noticed he preferred them. When he arrived at 7:30, he paused, looking at the perfectly prepared desk. "You're early," he said. "I wanted to get a head start, Mr. Ward." He gave her another of those unreadable looks before sitting down. If she didn't know better, she might have thought he was impressed. By the end of the week, Rayner had fallen into a rhythm. She anticipated Cassian's needs before he voiced them. She handled difficult clients with calm efficiency. She never complained, never faltered, never asked for recognition. Cassian remained distant, speaking to her only when necessary. But she noticed he was watching her, quick glances when he thought she wasn't looking, assessing, evaluating. On Friday afternoon, Rayner opened her desk drawer to find a small envelope that hadn't been there that morning. Inside was a handwritten note on thick cream paper. "In a world of noise, your quiet competence speaks volumes. You are seen." It wasn't signed. Rayner stared at the note, confused. Who would leave this? Had someone put it in the wrong desk? She slipped it into her purse, putting the mystery aside to focus on her work. The weekend passed quickly. Rayner spent Saturday at her mother's bedside at Golden Pines Care Center, reading to her although she wasn't sure her mother could hear her anymore. On Sunday, she prepared for the week ahead, reviewing notes and organizing her planner. Monday morning, she found another note, this time tucked inside her planner when she opened it. "Your eyes miss nothing, yet judge no one. This is rarer than you know." And at the bottom, "You are more than you were ever told, and I see all of it." Rayner's heart pounded. This was deliberately meant for her. But who would notice such things? Who was watching her this closely? She looked around the office. Jeremy Collins, Cassian's charming project manager, smiled at her from across the room. He'd been friendly since her first day, bringing her coffee once, complimenting her work. Could it be him? Cassian emerged from his office. "Miss Holloway, the Thompson presentation." "Right here, sir." She handed him the folder, their fingers brushing briefly. He pulled back as if burned, his face hardening. "Schedule the conference room for 2 p.m. Already done, and I've prepared extra copies of the proposal." He paused. "Good thinking." It was the closest thing to a compliment he'd given her. That afternoon during the Thompson meeting, Rayner sat quietly in the corner taking notes. Cassian commanded the room, his presentation flawless but delivered with cold precision. Afterward, as executives filed out, Jeremy lingered. "Impressive, wasn't he?" Jeremy said, nodding toward Cassian, who was gathering his materials. "Very," Rayner agreed. Jeremy lowered his voice. "Don't let the Iceman routine fool you. There's a human being in there somewhere." He winked. "Maybe." Cassian looked up sharply. "If you're finished, Collins, the Westover brief needs your attention." Jeremy grinned, unfazed. "Right away, boss." He turned to Rayner. "See you around, Rayner." As weeks passed, the notes continued appearing. In her coat pocket, tucked into her desk drawer, slipped between pages of reports. "Your kindness isn't weakness. It's your greatest strength." The way you arrange his schedule, making time for what matters without him knowing, is its own kind of art. I wonder if anyone has ever truly taken care of you, the way you take care of everyone else. Always ending with, "You are more than you were ever told, and I see all of it." The notes became Rayner's secret joy. She kept them in a small box beside her bed, reading them on hard days when the world felt too heavy. And she began watching Jeremy more closely. He always seemed to be nearby when she found a note. He brought her coffee just because. He remembered details she mentioned in passing. But then there was Cassian. The man barely spoke to her beyond work matters, yet something had shifted. He'd started bringing his own coffee some mornings, telling her, "You have enough to do." Once, when she stayed late finishing a report, he ordered dinner for both of them, placing hers on her desk without comment before retreating to his office. One evening, 6 weeks into her assignment, Rayner was working late. The office was empty, except for her and Cassian. A storm raged outside, rain lashing against the windows. "Miss Holloway," Cassian called from his office. She hurried in. "Yes, Mr. Ward? It's nearly 9. You should go home. I'm just finishing the Henderson file." Lightning flashed, followed by a rumble of thunder. "Besides, I think I'll wait for the storm to let up a bit." He studied her. "You don't drive?" She was surprised. He'd noticed. "No, sir, I take the subway." He frowned. "That's a 20-minute walk from here in this weather." He stood up, grabbing his keys. "I'll drive you." "Oh no, that's not necessary." "It wasn't a suggestion, Miss Holloway." The drive was quiet, the rain creating a cocoon of sound around them. Raina gave directions to her small apartment in a modest neighborhood. "Thank you, Mr. Ward," she said when he pulled up to her building. "This was very kind." "It was practical," he corrected. "I need you functional tomorrow." But there was something in his eyes, something that didn't match his cold words. "Of course," she said, smiling slightly. "Good night, sir." The next morning, Raina found another note in her coat pocket. "Your smile last night lit up the darkest storm. I'd drive through 100 more to see it again." Her heart skipped. This had to be from Cassian. No one else had seen her last night. But that couldn't be right. Cassian, who barely spoke to her. Cassian, who flinched when their hands touched. Confused, she tucked the note away and tried to focus on work. Later that day, Jeremy stopped by her desk. "Lunch plans, Raina? There's a new sandwich place downstairs. I should stay and answer these emails, and even the most dedicated assistant needs to eat." His smile was warm, inviting. Over lunch, Jeremy was charming and attentive. He asked about her life, her dreams. He made her laugh. When they returned to the office, he touched her hand briefly. "We should do this again, maybe dinner next time." Raina blushed. "I'd like that." That afternoon, Cassian was particularly distant, barking orders and finding fault with her work for the first time. "The Martinez report is out of order," he said, coldly dropping it on her desk. "Fix it." Raina checked the report, confused. It was perfectly organized according to his usual preference. The next day, another note appeared in her planner. "Jealousy is an ugly emotion. Forgive me for yesterday. Some habits of the heart are hard to break. Was it possible? Cassian Ward, jealous of her lunch with Jeremy? But why would he hide behind notes instead of speaking to her directly? The mystery deepened when Jeremy invited her to dinner that Friday. He was attentive all evening, sharing stories and asking about her life. As he walked her to her door, he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he said softly. "Jeremy, don't overthink it, Raina. Sometimes good things are exactly what they seem." He leaned in, kissing her cheek. "Good night." Monday morning, Raina arrived early as usual. The office was empty as she prepared for the day. On her desk was an envelope, thicker than the usual notes. Inside, she found a letter. "Raina, words come easier to me on paper than in person. Always have. When you arrived, so quiet and careful, I told myself to keep my distance. People like me destroy gentle things without meaning to. But watching you, your quiet strength, your small kindnesses that no one else notices, has become the best part of my days. I know I have no right to ask, but be careful with Collins. His charm comes easily because it costs him nothing. You deserve someone who sees you, really sees you. You are more than you were ever told, and I see all of it." This time it was signed simply, "See." Raina's fingers trembled. "See, Cassian?" It had to be. All this time, she heard the elevator doors open and quickly tucked the letter into her desk drawer. Jeremy walked in, coffee in hand. "Morning, beautiful," he said with a wink. "Brought you your favorite." "Thank you," she said, taking the coffee. "That's very thoughtful." "It's nothing." He perched on the edge of her desk. "Listen, I was thinking—" The elevator dinged again. Cassian stepped out, stopping abruptly when he saw them. His jaw tightened. "Collins, the Miller project needs your attention." His voice could have frozen fire. "On it, boss." Jeremy squeezed Raina's shoulder before walking away. Cassian's eyes followed the touch, his expression darkening. "Mr. Ward, your morning schedule," Raina began. "My office, now." She followed him, notepad in hand, heart pounding. Cassian paced behind his desk, tension radiating from him. He started to speak, then stopped, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Is there something wrong with the Miller project?" Raina asked. "This isn't about Miller." He finally looked at her, something raw in his expression. "Collins, are you involved with him?" We've had lunch and one dinner." She swallowed. Why do you ask, sir? He turned to look out the window. No reason. You're free to spend time with whoever you choose. Mr. Ward, that will be all, Miss Holloway. Dismissed again. Rayna returned to her desk, mind racing. If Cassian was writing the notes, why couldn't he just talk to her like a normal person? And if he cared, why push her away? That afternoon, Rayna had to deliver some papers to Cassian's office while he was in a meeting. As she placed them on his desk, she noticed his letterhead, thick cream paper, exactly like the notes, and a fountain pen, the ink a distinctive shade of blue-black. Her hand trembled as she picked up the pen, the same distinctive writing as in her notes. It was him. It had always been him. As she set the pen down, she knocked over a folder, papers scattered across the desk. As she gathered them, a half-written note caught her eye. Rayna, I have no right to feel this way. No right to the ache I feel when he makes you smile. I built these walls for a reason, and yet with every quiet day you dismantle them brick by. The note ended there. Rayna's heart pounded as she quickly straightened the papers, putting everything back in place. The next morning, Rayna arrived to find an envelope on her desk. Inside was a single note. I never meant for you to find out, but now that you have, I won't pretend anymore. See. She turned, and Cassian was standing there, watching her with those unreadable grey eyes. Time seemed to stand still as Rayna stared at Cassian. He remained motionless, his face unreadable except for a slight tension around his eyes. It was you, she finally whispered. All this time. Cassian's jaw tightened. Yes. But why? Why not just talk to me? He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty from a man who always seemed so controlled. Talking isn't easy for me. But writing these notes was. She held up the envelope. Words on paper don't require immediate response. Don't require watching disappointment cross someone's face. He moved closer, still keeping the desk between them. I never meant for you to find out. Then why leave this? She gestured to the note in her hand. Because I saw you yesterday in my office. His eyes met hers. You found the unfinished note. Heat rushed to Rayna's cheeks. I wasn't snooping. I knocked over some papers and... I know. His voice softened slightly. You're many things, Rayna Holloway, but dishonest isn't one of them. The sound of her first name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver through her. I don't understand, she said. You barely speak to me. You flinch when our hands touch. And yet you write she looked down at the note, these beautiful words. Cassian turned away, his shoulders rigid. It was a mistake. I apologize for any discomfort I've caused. That's not... The elevator dinged, cutting her off. Jeremy stepped out, smiling broadly when he saw her. Morning sunshine. He approached her desk, completely ignoring the tension in the air. Ready? For another dinner this Friday. I was thinking that Italian place you mentioned. Cassian's expression hardened instantly. Collins. The Hong Kong investors are waiting in conference room 3. Jeremy's smile didn't falter. Of course, boss, I'll be right there. He winked at Rayna. Think about Friday? After he left, an uncomfortable silence fell between Rayna and Cassian. Mr. Ward, I think we should... We have work to do, Miss Holloway, he said coldly. The Johnson file needs to be revised before noon. And just like that, the wall was back up. Rayna spent the morning in a daze, mechanically completing her tasks while her mind raced. She kept stealing glances at Cassian's office, where he remained shut away, only emerging for scheduled meetings. At lunch, Jeremy found her in the break room. You okay? You look distracted. He sat beside her, his knee brushing against hers. I'm fine, just busy. Jeremy studied her face. Is it the Ice King? Has he been giving you a hard time? No, it's not that. She hesitated, then decided to test the waters. Jeremy, can I ask you something personal? Anything. His smile was warm, inviting. Have you ever written me notes? He looked confused. Notes? What kind of notes? Never mind. It's nothing. She forced a smile. About Friday, I'll pick you up at 7. He squeezed her hand. Wear something pretty. As Jeremy walked away, Raina noticed Cassian standing in the doorway, his face like thunder. He turned and walked back to his office without a word. The afternoon dragged on. At 5 o'clock, most employees began packing, up to leave. Raina remained at her desk, waiting for everyone to go. She needed to talk to Cassian without interruptions. At 6, when the office was nearly empty, she knocked on his door. Enter. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Cassian looked up, his expression guarded. Mr. Ward, Cassian, he corrected quietly. If we're going to have this conversation, at least use my name, Cassian. The name felt intimate on her lips. Why me? Of all the women you could have. I didn't choose this, Raina. He stood, pacing to the window. You arrived, and you were different, quiet, observant. You didn't try to impress me or flirt or scheme. You just did your job with care and attention I've rarely seen. That's just doing my job. No, he turned to face her. It's more than that. It's how you rearrange my schedule to make sure I eat lunch on busy days. How you remember small details about clients that make negotiations smoother. How you stand up to me when I'm being unreasonable, but always with respect. Raina blushed. I didn't think you noticed those things. I notice everything about you. The words hung in the air between them. But you never said anything. You barely look at me most days. Because I've been down this road before. His voice hardened. 3 years ago, Catherine Blake, my former assistant. Raina recognized the name from tabloid headlines years ago. The one who sold stories to the press, who recorded private conversations, who made me believe she cared, all while planning to write a tell-all book about the real Cassian Ward. His laugh was bitter. She taught me an important lesson about mixing business and personal matters. I'm not Catherine. No, you're not. His eyes softened, which is precisely why I kept my distance. People like you get hurt by people like me. Shouldn't that be my decision? He moved closer. Is that what you want, Raina? To get involved with someone the tabloids call the Iceman? Someone who doesn't know how to do this? He gestured between them. The man who wrote those notes doesn't seem like an Iceman to me. For a moment, vulnerability flashed across his face. Then his phone rang, breaking the moment. He checked the screen. I have to take this. It's the Tokyo office. Raina nodded, stepping back. We'll talk later. But they didn't. For the next 3 days, Cassian was either in meetings or on business calls. When they did interact, it was strictly professional. No more notes appeared. It was as if their conversation had never happened. On Friday morning, Jeremy stopped by her desk. Don't forget, dinner tonight at 7, I'll pick you up. Actually, Jeremy, she hesitated. I'm not sure tonight is good for me. His smile dimmed. Is everything okay? I'm just confused about some things right now. Jeremy leaned closer. This isn't about Ward, is it? The notes, Raina froze. What do you know about the notes? Oh, Raina, Jeremy shook his head. Don't tell me you fell for his little game. Game? What are you talking about? Jeremy glanced around, lowering his voice. Cassian Ward has a reputation. The notes, the mysterious admirer routine, he does this. It's how he amuses himself. I don't believe you. Ask Martha in legal, or Diane from the London office. He writes them these beautiful notes, makes them think they're special, then drops them when he gets bored. Jeremy touched her arm. I didn't say anything because I thought you were too smart to fall for it. How do you know about this? Everyone knows, it's office legend. He squeezed her hand. Look, forget dinner. Let me take you for coffee as friends. You look like you could use someone to talk to. Raina's mind was spinning. Could it be true? Was she just another in a line of women Cassian had manipulated? Okay, coffee, give me 5 minutes to finish this report. Jeremy smiled. I'll wait by the elevator. After he left, Raina sat stunned. The notes that had meant so much, were they just a cruel game? But they had seemed so sincere, so personal. Steeling herself, she walked to the legal department and found Martha Chen, a senior attorney she'd spoken with several times. Martha, can I ask you something personal? Martha looked up from her desk. Sure, Raina. What's up? It's about Mr. Ward. Did he ever write you notes? Martha's expression changed. Who told you about that? Raina's heart sank. Then it's true. Not in the way you're thinking. Martha glanced around, then lowered her voice. 3 years ago, Cassian did write me notes. Professional ones, encouraging my work. Then Catherine, Blake found out and started a rumor that we were having an affair. She twisted everything, made it seem sleazy. After that, Cassian stopped interacting with female employees beyond what was strictly necessary. So he wasn't playing some kind of game? Martha looked confused. Game? Cassian Ward doesn't play games. He's the most straightforward man I know. To a fault, really. Relief washed over Raina. Thank you, Martha, that helps. As she walked back to her desk, she saw Jeremy waiting by the elevator, checking his watch. Something about his eagerness to paint Cassian as manipulative bothered her. On an impulse, she turned and walked toward Cassian's office instead. His door was open, and he was on the phone, his back to her. I don't care what it costs, he was saying. Run the background check again, more thorough this time. A pause. Yes, on Collins. Something doesn't add up. Raina stepped back, not wanting to eavesdrop, but Cassian had already sensed her presence and turned. I'll call you back, he said into the phone before hanging up. Miss Holloway, is there something you need? She stepped into his office. Jeremy told me something disturbing about you sending notes to other women, playing games with them. Cassian's expression darkened. And you believed him? I wanted to hear your side. He stood, anger radiating from him. I've written exactly 2 notes to female employees in the past, both professional commendations for exceptional work. Catherine Blake twisted those into evidence of impropriety. His voice was tight. I don't play games, Raina. I talked to Martha. She told me what really happened. Some of the tension left his shoulders. Then why are you here? Because Jeremy lied to me, deliberately, and I want to know why. Cassian sighed. I've been having Collins investigated. His resume has discrepancies. His references don't check out, and he's been asking unusually detailed questions about upcoming mergers. You think he's, what, a corporate spy? I don't know yet, but I don't trust him. Cassian's eyes met hers. Especially not with you. The sincerity in his gaze made her heart skip. I was supposed to have coffee with him right now. He's waiting by the elevator. Go, Cassian said. Act normal. We need to know what he's after. I'm not a spy, Cassian. No, you're much more valuable than that. He hesitated, then reached for a pen and paper. Quickly, he wrote something and handed it to her. The note read, Trust your instincts. They've never led you wrong. I'll be waiting when you're ready. Raina tucked the note into her pocket, warmth spreading through her chest. I'll be careful. I know you will. At the elevator, Jeremy's smile seemed different now, calculated rather than warm. Everything okay? You took a while. Sorry, got caught up with a file, she forced a smile. Ready for that coffee? At the cafe across the street, Jeremy was charming as always, asking about her weekend plans, her interests outside of work. But now Raina noticed how skillfully he steered the conversation toward Ward Enterprises. So, what's the big mystery? Project Cassian's been working on. The one with all the closed-door meetings. Raina sipped her coffee. I'm not sure. Mr. Ward keeps me informed on a need-to-know basis. Come on, Raina. Jeremy leaned closer. You must see things, hear things. His assistant knows everything. Not this assistant. I've only been there 2 months. Jeremy's smile tightened slightly. Right. Temporary position. He reached for her hand. You know, I'm working on something that could be huge. If it pans out, I might need an assistant of my own. Someone I can trust. Are you offering me a job? Just keeping my options open. He winked. So the Thompson merger. Is that still happening next month? Raina carefully deflected his questions while appearing interested and flattered. By the time they finished their coffee, she had no doubts. Jeremy was fishing for information. Back at the office, she went straight to Cassian's door and knocked. Come in, she entered, closing the door behind her. You were right about Jeremy. He spent the entire time trying to get information about the Thompson merger. Cassian's expression darkened. The Thompson merger is confidential. Only the board and senior management know about it. Then how does Jeremy know? That's what I intend to find out. He picked up his phone. Linda, get security up here. I want Collins escorted to my office immediately. 20 minutes later, Jeremy was sitting across from Cassian, his usual charm replaced with nervous tension. Rayner stood by the door out of Jeremy's line of sight. Collins, how long have you worked for Ward Enterprises? Cassian's voice was cold, clinical. 2 years, sir, in project development. And before that? Jeremy shifted in his seat. Various. Consulting positions, it's all in my file. Yes, your file. Cassian opened a folder. The one that claims you worked for Blackstone Group from 2017 to 2020. Interesting, since they have no record of your employment. There must be some mistake. The mistake was mine, hiring you without a more thorough background check. Cassian slid a document across the desk. Care to explain why you've been accessing confidential server files about the Thompson merger? Files you have no authorization to view. Jeremy's charming facade crumbled. I can explain. Save it for the authorities. You're being terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to clean out your desk, then off the premises. Jeremy's face contorted with anger. He turned, noticing Rayner for the first time. You set me up. No, Jeremy. You did that yourself. After security led Jeremy away, Cassian turned to Rayner. You handled that well. I'm just glad you caught him before he could do any real damage. If you hadn't come to me with your concerns, we might not have. His expression softened slightly. Thank you. I was just doing my job. No, you were being you, observant, loyal. He hesitated. The qualities that made me notice you in the first place. The air between them seemed charged with unspoken words. The notes, she said softly. Did you mean what you wrote? Cassian moved closer, his usual icy demeanor nowhere in sight. Every word. Then why stop? Because words aren't enough anymore. He reached out, his fingers hovering just above her cheek without touching. But I don't know how to do this, Rayner. I've spent years keeping people at a distance. Maybe start with something small, she suggested, her heart racing. Like using my first name more often. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Rayner. See? Not so hard. She smiled. What else feels possible? Cassian hesitated, then slowly reached for her hand. His touch was tentative, almost reverent as his fingers laced with hers. This, he said softly. This feels possible. The moment was interrupted by Cassian's phone. He reluctantly released her hand to check it. It's the board, the emergency meeting about Collins. You should go. He nodded. Will you wait? We need to talk, really talk. I'll be here. After Cassian left, Rayner went to her desk, still feeling the warmth of his hand on hers. She opened her drawer and took out the box of notes, reading through them again. Each one revealed another layer of the man behind the cold exterior, a man who noticed small kindnesses, who appreciated quiet strength, who saw beyond surfaces to the heart beneath. An hour later, as she was organizing files, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Hello, Rayner. It's Dr. Patel from Golden Pines Care Center. It's about your mother. Rayner's blood ran cold. What happened? She's had a setback. Her oxygen levels dropped dramatically. We've stabilized her, but I think you should come as soon as possible. I'm on my way. She quickly gathered her things, scribbling a note for Cassian explaining her emergency departure. As she hurried toward the elevator, the doors opened and Cassian stepped out. Rayner? What's wrong? It's my mother. She's in the hospital. Gotta go. I'll drive you. You have the board meeting. It's finished. He took her arm gently. Let me help. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Golden Pines Care Center. Cassian stayed in the waiting room while Rayner rushed to her mother's room. Eleanor Holloway lay pale and frail in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, monitors beeping steadily beside her. Dr. Patel stood reviewing her chart. How is she? Rayner asked, taking her mother's hand. Stable for now. The pneumonia is putting strain on her lungs. Dr. Patel's expression was serious. Rayner, we've discussed your mother's condition before. The MS is progressing rapidly. But there are treatments. The treatments slow progression, but they're expensive. Without comprehensive insurance, Raina nodded, the familiar weight of financial worry settling on her shoulders. I understand. I've been saving from my new job. Maybe in another month. Actually, Dr. Patel said, that's something else I wanted to discuss. This morning, the hospital received payment for 6 months of your mother's treatment, premium care, private room, everything. That's not possible. I couldn't afford... The payment didn't come from you. Dr. Patel looked confused. It came from the Ward Foundation. I assumed you knew about it. Raina's mind raced. The Ward Foundation was Cassian's charitable organization, but she had never mentioned her mother's situation to him. Excuse me, Dr. Patel. She hurried back to the waiting room, where Cassian stood looking out the window. You paid for my mother's treatment, she said. He turned, his expression unreadable. Yes. How did you even know about her condition? Your emergency contact information listed Golden Pines. I had my foundation look into it. Why would you do that? Cassian looked uncomfortable. I wanted to help, that's all. Cassian, I can't accept. You can and you will. His voice was firm but gentle. The foundation exists for cases exactly like your mother's. It's not charity, Raina. It's what decent people do for those they care about. Tears filled her eyes. No one has ever done anything like this for me. Then everyone else has failed you. He hesitated, then carefully reached up to brush a tear from her cheek. You spend your life taking care of others. Let someone take care of you for once. Raina looked up at him, seeing past the cold exterior to the man who had been revealing himself to her one note at a time for weeks. Impulsively, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Cassian froze for a moment. Then slowly, tentatively, his arms came around her. He held her gently, as if she were made of glass. Thank you, she whispered against his chest. Don't thank me, he murmured into her hair. Just let me be here for you. They stood like that, wrapped in each other's arms, neither willing to be the first to let go. Something was changing between them, walls crumbling, bridges forming. After checking on her mother and speaking with the doctors about her improved care plan, Raina and Cassian walked out to his car. I should get back to my apartment, she said. It's been a long day. I'll drive you. The ride was quiet but comfortable. When they arrived at her building, Cassian walked her to her door. Will you be okay? He asked. Yes, knowing my mother is getting the care she needs and it's a weight off my shoulders. He nodded. Good. Raina unlocked her door, then turned back to him. Cassian, why did you never sign the notes? Until yesterday, I mean. Because I was a coward. His honesty surprised her. Because signing them would make it real. Would require me to be the man who wrote those words, not just the man who hides behind them. And now? Now? He took her eyes, deep breath. Now I want to try to be that man. If you'll give me the chance, I'd like that. As he turned to leave, she called after him. Cassian, will there be more notes? For the first time, she saw him smile, a real smile that transformed his face, warming his eyes. Some things are better said in person, don't you think? The next morning, Raina woke to a knock at her door. When she opened it, there was no one there, just a small envelope on the floor. Inside was a note. Last night, when you were in my arms, I felt something I thought I'd never feel again. Hope. For coffee, for conversation, for whatever you're willing to share with me. I'll be waiting at the cafe on the corner at 10. You are more than you were ever told, and I see all of it. Cassian. Raina stood in front of her closet, nervously sorting through her modest collection of clothes. What did one wear to meet a billionaire for coffee? Especially when that billionaire was technically still her boss, had been secretly writing her anonymous notes for weeks, and had just paid for her mother's medical care. She finally settled on a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes. Nothing fancy, but nicer than her work clothes. She wanted to look like herself, not like someone trying too hard to impress Cassian Ward. At 9:55, she entered the small cafe on the corner. It was cozy and warm, with mismatched furniture and the rich aroma of coffee in the air. The perfect place for a private conversation, nothing like the sleek, modern coffee shops near the office. Cassian was already there, sitting at a table by the window. He looked different in casual clothes, dark jeans and a grey sweater that softened his usually severe appearance, less like the intimidating CEO and more like the man who wrote those heartfelt notes. He stood when he saw her, something like nervousness, flashing across his face. "You came," he said, as if he'd half expected her not to. "Did you think I wouldn't? I wouldn't have blamed you." He pulled out her chair. "After everything." She sat down, studying him. "You're not wearing a suit." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I do own other clothes, contrary to popular belief." "I like it. You look more approachable." A waitress came to take their order. Cassian asked for black coffee. Raina ordered a vanilla latte. "How's your mother?" Cassian asked when they were alone again. "Better. Dr. Patel says the new treatment is already showing improvement." She hesitated. "I still don't know how to thank you for that." "You don't need to." His voice was gentle but firm. "Your mother deserves the best care. You shouldn't have had to worry about how to provide it. Most people wouldn't see it that way. I'm not most people." He looked away. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What's the point of having it if not to help those who need it?" Raina reached across the table, touching his hand lightly. He looked startled, then turned his palm up, his fingers curling around hers. "Tell me about your mother," he said softly. For the next hour they talked, really talked. Raina told him about Eleanor Holloway, once a vibrant high school English teacher, now confined to a hospital bed by aggressive multiple sclerosis, about her father walking out when Raina was 12, leaving them to manage alone, about working through high school and college to help with medical bills. "That explains a lot," Cassian said. "What do you mean? Why you're so capable, resilient?" His thumb traced small circles on her palm. "Most people who faced what you have would be bitter." Would that have made things better? Being bitter? He studied her face. No, but it would have been understandable. The waitress brought their second round of coffee. When she left, Raina asked, "What about you? The notes mentioned you were burned by a public scandal. Was that Catherine Blake?" Cassian's expression darkened. "Among other things. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "No, He took a deep breath. "If we're going to explore whatever this is between us, you should know." He told her about growing up wealthy but emotionally neglected, about building Ward Enterprises from his inheritance, determined to create something meaningful, about Catherine Blake, the assistant who had seemed so perfect, so supportive, until he found out she was recording their private conversations and selling information to his competitors. The scandal nearly destroyed the company, but worse than that, it made me question my judgment. If I could be so wrong about someone I trusted. He shook his head. After that, it seemed safer to keep everyone at a distance. "Until me," Raina said softly. "Until you." His eyes met hers. "I tried to maintain that distance, but then you'd do something, reorganize my calendar so I had time to eat lunch or remember a client's daughter's name, and I'd find myself writing another note. Why hide behind anonymity? Because anonymous words can't be rejected." He looked down at their joined hands, "and I was certain you would reject me if you knew." "Why would I do that? Look at me, Raina." His voice was strained. "I'm not an easy man. I'm demanding, obsessive about work, terrible at expressing emotions. I've been called cold, ruthless." "By people who don't know you," she interrupted. "The man who wrote those notes isn't cold or ruthless. He's observant, thoughtful, maybe a little afraid of being hurt again." Something vulnerable flashed in his eyes. "I don't want to disappoint you." "Then don't." She squeezed his hand. "Just be honest with me, like you were in the notes." He nodded slowly. "I can try." As they left the cafe, Cassian asked, "Would you like to see your mother? I could drive you to the hospital." The day was spent at Golden Pines, where Eleanor Holloway was already showing signs of improvement under her new treatment plan. Cassian hung back, giving Raina privacy with her mother, but she noticed how he spoke respectfully with the doctors, how he remembered the nurses' names, small things, important things. "Your boss seems nice," Eleanor said weakly when Cassian stepped out to take a call. "He's complicated." Raina replied. But yes, he is nice in his own way. He looks at you when you're not watching, her mother observed, like you're something precious. Later, as they drove back to the city, Raina asked, "What happens on Monday? At work?" Cassian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know, this is all very new. Perhaps we should keep things professional at the office, at least for now." Raina nodded, though she felt a twinge of disappointment. "That makes sense." He glanced at her. "That doesn't mean I want to go back to how things were." "What does it mean then?" "It means I'd like to see you outside of work. Dinners, weekends." He hesitated. "If that's what you want, I'd like that." When they reached her apartment building, he walked her to her door again. This time there was a tension between them, the possibility of more. "Thank you for today," she said. "For everything. Raina." The way he said her name made her heart race. "May I?" He didn't finish the question, but she understood. Nodding. Slightly, she stepped closer. Cassian's hand came up to gently cup her cheek, his touch reverent. Slowly, he leaned down, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she didn't, his lips met hers in a kiss so tender it brought tears to her eyes. It was brief, just a soft promise of what might be. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with emotion. "Good night, Raina." "Good night, Cassian." Monday morning arrived with nervous anticipation. Raina dressed carefully for work, wondering how she would manage to maintain a professional demeanor after the weekend they'd shared. When she arrived at the office, something felt different. Colleagues were gathered in small groups, whispering. Melissa from HR gave her a strange look as she passed. At her desk, she found a note in a familiar envelope. "Good morning, Raina. I missed you yesterday. Strange how quickly that happened. You are more than you were ever told, and I see all of it." "See," she smiled, tucking the note away. So much for keeping things strictly professional. Her phone rang. It was Cassian. "Good morning, Miss Holloway," he said, his formal tone at odds with the note he'd left. "Could you come to my office, please?" "Right away, Mr. Ward." When she entered his office, she found him standing by the window, his expression serious. "Close the door," he said. She did, her heart racing. "Is everything okay?" "That depends." He handed her a tablet. On the screen was a gossip website with the headline, "Ward's New Romance? Billionaire CEO spotted with mystery woman." Beneath it was a photo of them at the cafe, holding hands across the table. Raina's blood ran cold. Oh no. It gets worse. He swiped to another article titled, "From Assistant to Lover, Ward's Office Romance." This one had a photo of Cassian, helping her into his car outside Golden Pines. "They're making it sound sleazy," she said, anger rising, "like I'm some kind of gold digger." "I'm so sorry, Raina." Cassian ran a hand through his hair. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. The press, the scrutiny. It's why I've avoided relationships for so long." "What do? We have options. We could deny it, say we were discussing business, or we could just say no comment and wait for it to blow over." He hesitated. "Or we could confirm it. Which would you prefer?" "What I prefer doesn't matter." He moved closer. "It's your reputation they're dragging through the mud, your privacy. They're invading. So it's your decision." Raina considered her options. Denying it felt wrong, like they had something to be ashamed of. But confirming it would mean public scrutiny, people questioning her motives, her abilities. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Of course." He touched her arm gently. "Take all the time you need." Throughout the day, Raina felt eyes on her. Whispers followed her through the hallways. By afternoon, she'd received 3 calls from unknown numbers, reporters most likely. At lunch, she sought refuge in the small office kitchen, only to overhear 2 women talking in the break room next door. "I heard she's been sleeping with him for weeks," one said. "That's why she got the job. Please, have you seen her? So plain. He could have anyone. Maybe that's the appeal. Someone he can control." Raina's cheeks burned with humiliation. She wanted to confront them, to defend herself. But what was the point? People would believe what they wanted to believe. Back at her desk, she found another envelope. "Their words can't diminish what's real." and what's between us is real. See, despite everything, the note made her smile. She looked up to find Cassian watching her from his office doorway, his expression soft. Just as she was about to speak to him, the elevator doors opened. A striking woman in a designer suit stepped out, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She moved with confidence, heading straight for Cassian. "Cassian, darling," her voice carried across the office. Cassian stiffened visibly. "Victoria, this is unexpected." Victoria Arlington. Raina recognized her from society pages, heiress to a hotel empire, known for her philanthropy and her on-again, off-again relationship with Cassian before the Catherine Blake scandal. Victoria kissed Cassian's cheek, a proprietary gesture that made Raina's stomach twist. "I saw the articles, thought I should check on you." Her eyes swept over Raina dismissively. "Is this her? Your assistant?" The way she said assistant made it sound like a euphemism for something vulgar. Cassian's jaw tightened. "Victoria, this is Raina Holloway. Raina Victoria Arlington, an old friend." "More than friends, once upon a time," Victoria said with a predatory smile. "Isn't that right, Cassian?" "That was a long time ago." Victoria linked her arm through his. "We should talk privately, darling, about damage control." Before Cassian could respond, Raina stood up. "I just remembered I need to drop these contracts at legal, excuse me." She hurried away, papers clutched to her chest, not trusting herself to maintain composure. She'd known Cassian had a past of course he did. But seeing Victoria Arlington with her perfect appearance and shared history with him highlighted every insecurity Raina had been trying to ignore. What was she doing? Getting involved with her boss, a billionaire with a life so far removed from her own, it was madness. In the legal department, Martha found her staring blankly at the wall. "Rough day?" Martha asked. "You could say that." Martha led her to a quiet corner. "I saw the articles and Victoria Arlington strutting in like she owns the place. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's paying attention." Martha's expression softened. "For what it's worth, I've worked with Cassian for 8 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. It's complicated. Of course it is. He's Cassian Ward. Nothing about him is simple." Martha smiled. "But complicated doesn't mean impossible." When Raina returned to her desk an hour later, Victoria was gone. Cassian's office door was closed, the blinds drawn. Her computer dinged with a new email. From Cassian. "Raina, I apologize for Victoria's behavior. She had no right to speak to you that way. She's gone and won't be returning. I understand if today's events have made you reconsider things. The last thing I want is to make your life more difficult. Whatever you decide, please know that your position here is secure." Cassian. Raina stared at the screen, torn between her growing feelings for Cassian and the reality of what a relationship with him would mean. Before she could decide how to respond, her phone rang. It was Golden Pines. "Miss Holloway, it's about your mother. She's had a seizure. The doctors are with her now, but you should come quickly." The world seemed to tilt. "I'll be right there." She grabbed her coat and purse, heading for the elevator. On impulse, she sent a quick text to Cassian. "Emergency with my mother. Going to Golden Pines." The doors were closing when a hand stopped them. Cassian stepped in. "I'm coming with you," he said simply. "You don't have to." "I know." His eyes met hers. "I want to." At Golden Pines, they found Dr. Patel outside Eleanor's room. "What happened?" Raina asked. "The seizure was caused by swelling in her brain, a complication of her MS. We've stabilized her, but—" He hesitated. "I'm afraid the damage was significant. She's conscious but unresponsive." "What does that mean?" "She can hear, possibly understand, but can't communicate. And we don't know if it's temporary or—" He didn't finish the sentence. Raina felt her knees weaken. Cassian's arm went around her waist, steadying her. "Can we see her?" he asked. "Of course, but prepare yourself. It might be difficult." In the room, Eleanor lay still, her eyes open but vacant. Machines beeped softly, monitoring her vital signs. "Mom." Raina approached the bed, taking her mother's limp hand. "Mom, it's me." "Raina." No response. Not even a flicker of recognition. Raina felt tears well up. She can't hear me. We don't know that, Cassian said gently. Doctor, Patel said she might understand, even if she can't respond. What if she's trapped in there, aware but unable to communicate? The thought was horrifying. Then we make sure she knows she's not alone. Cassian pulled a chair close to the bed for her. Talk to her, I'll give you privacy. Stay, please. Raina didn't want to be alone, not now. Cassian nodded, standing quietly by the door while Raina sat with her mother, talking softly about nothing and everything, hoping some part of Eleanor could hear her. Hours passed. Night fell. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting medication. At some point, Cassian disappeared, returning with coffee and sandwiches. You need to eat, he said, placing them beside her. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. For her. He nodded, toward Eleanor. She needs you strong. Raina took a few bites, more to appease him than from hunger. Thank you for being here. There's nowhere else I would be. Around midnight, Dr. Patel returned with updated test results. His expression was grave. The MRI shows extensive damage, he said quietly. I'm so sorry, Raina, but your mother's condition is irreversible. She may remain in this state for months, even years, but there will be no recovery. The words hit Raina like physical blows. No recovery, no more conversations, no more seeing her mother's smile. What happens now? She asked, her voice hollow. We make her comfortable, keep her free from pain. Dr. Patel hesitated. Did your mother ever discuss her wishes in this situation? Advanced directives? Raina nodded numbly. She has a living will. She wouldn't want to be kept alive artificially if there was no hope of recovery. I understand. That's something to consider. But not a decision you need to make tonight. He touched her shoulder gently. Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow. After he left, Raina sat in stunned silence. Cassian moved to stand behind her, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders. I don't know what to do, she whispered. You don't have to decide anything tonight. She's all I have, Cassian. The tears came then, hot and painful. She's my whole family. Cassian knelt beside her chair, drawing her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing against his chest while he held her, one hand stroking her hair. You're not alone, he murmured. I'm here. I'm right here with you. He held her until the tears subsided, until exhaustion replaced grief. Only then did he gently suggest they leave. The nurses have my number, he said. They'll call if there's any change. Too drained to argue, Raina let him lead her to his car. But when they pulled up to her building, she couldn't bear the thought of her empty apartment. I don't want to be alone tonight, she admitted. Not like this. Cassian studied her face. My place is closer to the hospital. You could stay in one of the guest rooms. No pressure, no expectations, just not alone. Raina nodded, grateful for the offer. Cassian's penthouse was exactly what she would have expected. Elegant, minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city lights. He showed her to a guest room with its own bathroom, lent her a t-shirt to sleep in, and promised to wake her if the hospital called. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time Raina closed her eyes, she saw her mother's vacant stare. Around 3 a.m., she gave up and wandered to the kitchen for water. She found Cassian sitting at the counter, reading through what looked like medical research papers. Can't sleep, he asked, looking up. She shook her head. What are you doing? Research. On experimental treatments for advanced MS with neurological complications. He rubbed his eyes. There are some promising studies in Switzerland. Raina stared at him, something warm unfurling in her chest despite her grief. You're researching treatments for my mother at 3 in the morning. I thought there might be options Dr. Patel hasn't considered. He hesitated. I know it's a long shot. She moved closer, looking at the papers spread across the counter. You're doing this for me? Yes. His eyes met hers. Is that okay? Instead of answering, Raina leaned forward and kissed him. Not like their first kiss, gentle and tentative. This was urgent, needy, filled with all the emotions she couldn't express in words. Cassian responded immediately, his arms going around her, pulling her closer. For a few precious moments, there was only this, his lips on hers, his hands in her hair, the solid warmth of him anchoring her in a world that had tilted on its axis. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Raina rested her forehead against his. "I don't know what happens tomorrow," she whispered. "With my mother, with the press, with any of it. But tonight, I don't want to be alone. And I don't." "I mean in a guest room." Cassian studied her face. "Raina, you're vulnerable right now. I don't want you to do something you might regret." "The only thing I'd regret is wasting one more minute pretending I don't want this." "Want you?" She took his hand. "Take me to bed, Cassian. Make me forget just for a little while." He searched her eyes, then nodded, leading her down the hallway to his bedroom. What followed was tender, reverent, Cassian touching her as if she might shatter, kissing away her tears, whispering her name like a prayer. In his arms, Raina found brief respite from her grief. For a few hours there was only this, two bodies finding solace in each other, two souls recognizing something rare and precious between them. Afterward, as they lay tangled in his sheets, Cassian held her close. "I've never felt this way before," he admitted quietly. "About anyone. Neither have I. Whatever happens, Raina, with your mother, with us, you're not alone anymore. Do you understand? I'm here. For all of it." In the soft darkness, with his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, she believed him. Morning came too soon. They were awakened by Cassian's phone, Golden Pines calling with news. "Eleanor's had another seizure," the nurse said. "Dr. Patel says you should come quickly." They dressed in silence, the peace of the night giving way to the harsh reality of day. By the time they reached the hospital, Eleanor's condition had deteriorated further. "Her organs are beginning to shut down," Dr. Patel explained gently. "I'm so sorry, Raina, but we're talking about hours now, not days." Raina sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand, talking softly about memories they'd shared. Cassian remained a steady presence, bringing her tea, making sure she ate, handling calls from the office so she could focus on her mother. In the late afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the hospital room, Eleanor Holloway took her last breath, quietly, without pain, with her daughter by her side. "She's gone," Raina whispered. Cassian moved to stand behind her, his hands on her shoulders, steady and strong. "She knew you were here. She knew she was loved." The next few days passed in a blur. Cassian handled everything, the funeral arrangements, the paperwork, the calls to distant relatives. He never left Raina's side, a quiet source of strength. When her own had failed, the funeral was small but dignified. Raina was surprised to see Martha from legal there, along with several other colleagues. Even Victoria Arlington sent flowers with a surprisingly thoughtful note. The press, mercifully, kept their distance. Something Raina later learned was due to Cassian making some calls, calling in favors. A week after the funeral, Raina sat in Cassian's living room, where she'd been staying since that first night. She'd barely been back to her apartment, finding comfort in his presence in the quiet routine they'd established. "I should go home," she said, more to herself than to him. "Get back to work, start figuring out what's next." Cassian sat beside her on the couch. "There's no rush. I can't hide here forever." "Is that what you feel you're doing? Hiding?" She looked away. "Maybe. From the press. From the gossip. From having to decide what our relationship is and what it means for my job. About that," Cassian took her hand, "I've been thinking. Your temporary position was only for 3 months while Melissa was away." Raina's heart sank. "She's due back next week." "Yes, which means we need to discuss your future at Ward Enterprises. I understand if it would be inappropriate for me to continue as your assistant, given our relationship." The word felt both inadequate and terrifying. "It would be," he agreed, "which is why I'd like to offer you a different position." "What kind of position?" "Director of the Ward Foundation, overseeing our charitable initiatives, deciding where resources go. It's important work, Raina. Work you'd be exceptional at." She stared at him. "You're creating a job for me?" "No. The position has been vacant for months. I've been handling it myself, but it deserves someone's full attention." He squeezed her hand. "You spent years taking care of your mother. You understand. What families in medical crisis need better than anyone." The offer was tempting, meaningful work that would honor her mother's memory, but doubt crept in. "People will say I got the job because we're sleeping together. People will talk no matter what you do." His voice was gentle. "The question is whether you'll let their opinions dictate your choices." "And what about us? What happens there?" Cassian studied her face. "That depends on what you want." "I want—" She hesitated. "I want something real, not hidden in notes or shadows. But I'm scared, Cassian. Everything's happened so fast. My mother, us, these feelings I can barely name." "Then we take it one day at a time." He brought her, hand to his lips, kissing her palm. "No pressure, no expectations, just us figuring it out together." "I'd like that." "Good." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small envelope. "One more note, for the road." Raina opened it, finding familiar handwriting. "When I wrote 'You are more than you were ever told,' I didn't know how true that was. Every day you show me new depths of strength, of grace, of resilience that leave me in awe. Whatever comes next, know this. You are seen. You are chosen. You are loved. Always yours. C." Tears blurred her vision as she looked up at him. For the first time, she saw no walls in his eyes, no reservations, just raw, honest emotion. "I love you, Raina Holloway," he said softly. "I think I have since that first day when you said you'd memorize the entire manual by the end of the day. And meant it." She laughed through her tears. "I love you too, notes and all." He pulled her close, his kiss a promise of all that might be. Whatever came next, the press, the gossip, the challenges of building something real from what had begun in shadows, they would face it together. The next morning, Raina woke in Cassian's arms, feeling truly at peace for the first time in weeks. As she watched him sleep, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. From anonymous notes to open hearts, there would be obstacles ahead, questions to answer, a new job to learn, a relationship to nurture in the unforgiving spotlight of public attention. But for now, in the quiet morning light, with Cassian's heartbeat steady beneath her cheek, Raina knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had been seen. She had been chosen, and she was loved. 1 month after accepting the position as director of the Ward Foundation, Raina stood at the podium, addressing the crowd gathered for the foundation's annual gala. The ballroom of the Riverside Hotel glittered, with chandeliers and the diamonds of New York's elite. 6 weeks ago, she would have felt completely out of place. Now she spoke with quiet confidence. "The Ward Foundation isn't just about writing checks," she said, her voice clear and steady. "It's about recognizing that behind every medical crisis is a family struggling to stay afloat. People who need more than just financial assistance. They need compassion, understanding, and dignity." From his seat at the main table, Cassian watched her with unmistakable pride. Gone was the hesitant assistant who had entered his life 3 months ago. In her place stood a woman embracing her strength and purpose. "Tonight, I'm proud to announce our new family support initiative, providing comprehensive assistance to families facing catastrophic medical situations." Raina's gaze found Cassian's. "Because no one should have to choose between caring for a loved one and keeping a roof over their head." Applause filled the room as she returned to her seat beside Cassian. Under the table, his hand found hers, squeezing gently. "You were magnificent," he murmured. "I was terrified," she admitted with a small smile. "No one would ever know." He brushed a kiss against her temple. "I'm so proud of you." The last month had been a whirlwind of changes. Raina had moved into Cassian's penthouse. Temporarily, she insisted, though neither of them seemed in a hurry to change the arrangement. She'd thrown herself into her new role, bringing fresh perspective to the foundation's work, and gradually they'd begun to appear together publicly, their relationship no longer a secret to be hidden. Not that it had been easy. The press had. A field day when Cassian officially announced Raina's new position. "Sleeping her way to the top," one tabloid had screamed. "Ward's charity case," asked another. But Raina had faced the gossip with quiet dignity, letting her work speak for itself. and Cassian had surprised her with his willingness to be more open, more vulnerable than she'd ever expected, not just with her, but in small ways with others, remembering birthdays, asking about families, writing personal notes of appreciation to employees who excelled. The man who had once been known as the Iceman was thawing one day at a time. After dinner, as the orchestra began to play, Cassian led Raina to the dance floor. Other couples joined them, but Raina barely noticed. In his arms, moving to the gentle rhythm of the music, the rest of the world faded away. "Happy?" he asked softly. "Yes," she answered honestly. "Though sometimes I still wonder if this is all a dream." His arm tightened around her waist. "If it is, I don't want to wake up." The music shifted to a slower melody. Cassian drew her closer, his cheek resting against her hair. "I never imagined this," he confessed. "After Catherine, I was convinced. I'd spend my life alone, it seemed safer that way. And now? Now I can't imagine my life without you in it." His voice was low, meant only for her ears. "You've changed everything, Raina." She looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes that he showed only to her. "So have you. A few months ago, I was just trying to survive. Now you're thriving," he finished for her. "As you should be, as you deserve to be." The dance ended, but Cassian kept hold of her hand. "I need some air. Will you join me on the terrace?" The night air was cool and fresh after the warmth of the ballroom. Stars glittered above the city skyline, and the distant sounds of traffic provided a gentle backdrop to their solitude. "I wanted a moment alone with you," Cassian said, leading her to a quiet corner of the terrace. "Away from all those people." "Getting overwhelmed by your own gala, Mr. Ward?" she teased. "No. Well, maybe a little." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. "But mostly I wanted privacy for what I'm about to say." Something in his tone made Raina's pulse quicken. "What is it?" Cassian took both her hands in his. "These past months have been the happiest of my life. I know that might sound hard to believe given everything that's happened. Your mother, the press, all the changes. But through it all, having you by my side has made me happier than I ever thought possible. Cassian, let me finish, please." He took a deep breath. "I spent years building walls, Raina, convincing myself that I was better off alone, that I didn't need or want someone to share my life with. And then you walked into my office that first day, so quiet and capable, and something inside me recognized you. Not just as someone I could desire, but as someone I could trust. Someone who could see past all my defenses to the man underneath." Tears pricked at Raina's eyes as she listened. "I started writing those notes because I didn't know how else to express what I was feeling," Cassian continued. "Words on paper were safer than words spoken aloud, but I don't want to hide behind anonymous notes anymore. I don't want anything between us to remain in shadow." To Raina's surprise, Cassian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "One last note," he said, handing it to her. "But this time, I want to watch you read it." With trembling fingers, Raina opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of the familiar cream stationery, with just a few lines written in Cassian's elegant hand. "Raina Holloway, will you marry me? You are more than you were ever told, and I see all of it. Always yours, Cassian." Raina looked up, tears blurring her vision, to find Cassian down on one knee before her, a small velvet box in his hand. He opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring, elegant and understated. "I know. It's fast," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "And if you need time, I understand. But I love you, Raina. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you just how much." Raina's heart felt too full for words. 3 months ago, she'd walked into Ward Enterprises hoping for nothing more than a temporary job to help pay her mother's medical bills. Now here she was, being proposed to by the man she'd once thought was completely out of her reach. "Cassian," she finally managed, "are you sure? The press will have a field day. People will talk even more than they already do." "Let them," he said firmly. "The only opinion that matters to me is yours." Raina thought of all they'd been through. The secret notes, the gradual trust, the way he'd stood by her through her mother's illness and death. How he'd seen her, really seen her, when she'd spent a lifetime feeling invisible. "Yes," she whispered, then more loudly, "Yes, Cassian, I'll marry you." His face lit up with joy as he slid the ring onto her finger. Then he was on his feet, gathering her in his arms, his kiss full of promise and passion. When they finally broke apart, Cassian rested his forehead against hers. "I should warn you, I'm not an easy man to live with. I work too much. I'm stubborn. I sometimes forget important dates." "I know all your flaws, Cassian Ward." She smiled up at him. "I was your assistant, remember? I've seen you at your worst. And yet you still said yes." He shook his head in wonder. "I don't deserve you." "Stop that." She placed her palm against his cheek. "You deserve to be happy. We both do." Back in the ballroom, their announcement was met with genuine congratulations, from some thinly veiled surprise from others. Victoria Arlington, watching from across the room, raised her champagne glass in a silent toast. "She's still in love with you," Raina observed quietly. "No," Cassian replied. "She's in love with the idea of me. There's a difference." He kissed Raina's forehead. "You're the only one who's ever loved the real me. Notes, flaws, and all." The next morning, their engagement was front-page news. Ward. "To wed former assistant," declared the business pages. "Billionaire's whirlwind romance," announced the gossip columns. Photos of them dancing at the gala, of Cassian on one knee on the terrace. How had paparazzi managed that? Of the ring on Raina's finger, all splashed across magazines and websites. "Are you okay?" Cassian asked as Raina scrolled through the headlines on her tablet. "Better than okay." She leaned over to kiss him. "I'm getting married to the man I love. What the press thinks doesn't matter. That's my girl." He pulled her into his arms, his earlier concerns about her reaction to the publicity clearly relieved. They set a date for 6 months later, a spring wedding, small and intimate. Despite Cassian's wealth and position, they both wanted something simple, just close friends and colleagues, a celebration of what they'd found in each other rather than a society spectacle. But life, as they'd both learned, rarely goes according to plan. 3 months before the wedding, Raina was working late at the foundation office when her assistant, Jessica, brought in the evening mail. "Package for you," Jessica said, placing a small brown parcel on Raina's desk. Hand-delivered, apparently. After Jessica left, Raina opened the package. Inside was a thumb drive and a typed note. "Miss Holloway, before you tie yourself to Cassian, Ward for life, you deserve to know who he really is, what he's capable of. The attached files contain proof that Ward Enterprises has been involved in illegal activities for years. Tax evasion, bribery of foreign officials, manipulation of stock, prices. Ask yourself why a man like Cassian Ward would suddenly fall for his plain ordinary assistant. What's his real agenda? A concerned friend?" Raina stared at the note, her hands trembling. Her first instinct was to throw away the thumb drive, to dismiss it as the work of someone jealous or vindictive, but a small voice in the back of her mind whispered doubts she'd tried to ignore. It had all happened so fast. Cassian Ward, brilliant, wealthy, powerful, falling for someone like her. What if there was an ulterior motive? What if the notes, the romance, all of it had been orchestrated for some purpose she couldn't see? With a deep breath, Raina plugged the thumb drive into her computer. It contained dozens of files, financial reports, emails, photographs. At first glance, they seemed damning. Emails from Cassian authorizing payments to unnamed consultants in countries with loose regulations. Photos of him meeting with officials later indicted for corruption. Financial records showing suspicious transfers. Raina's stomach churned. She couldn't believe Cassian would be involved in something like this. But the evidence looked real. Too real to ignore. She gathered her things and headed home, the thumb drive burning a hole in her pocket. When she arrived at the penthouse, Cassian was in his home office working late as usual. "There you are," he said, looking up with a smile that faded when he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" Raina placed the thumb drive on his desk. "Someone sent me this today, with a note suggesting that you're involved in illegal activities, that there's some hidden reason you're marrying me." Cassian's face went completely still. "And you believe it?" "I don't know what to believe," her voice broke. "The files look real, Cassian. There are emails with your signature, photos of you with people who've been indicted. I need you to tell me the truth." He picked up the thumb. drive, examining it with a frown. Who sent this? I don't know. The note wasn't signed. Cassian plugged the drive into his own computer, opening the files one by one, his expression growing more concerned with each document. These are doctored, he said finally. Very convincingly, but they're fake. This isn't my signature, it's close, but the loop on the C is wrong. And this meeting, he pointed to a photo, never happened. It's photoshopped, I can prove it. How? Because I was in Tokyo that day. There are flight records, hotel receipts, dozens of witnesses. He looked up at her, his eyes pained. The question is, why did you think these might be real? After everything we've been through, do you really believe I could be this man? The hurt in his voice made Raina's chest ache. I don't want to believe it, but it all happened so fast, Cassian. Sometimes I still can't understand what you see in me. What I see in you. He stood abruptly, pacing the room. How many times do I have to tell you to show you before you believe me? Before you trust that what I feel for you is real? I do trust you, it's just, no, you don't. His voice hardened. If you trusted me, you wouldn't have come in here with accusations based on anonymous files. You would have asked me directly without assuming the worst. I am asking you directly. After reviewing the evidence, he said bitterly, after letting doubt poison your mind. Raina felt tears well up. That's not fair. I came to you as soon as I saw them. I didn't go to the authorities or the press, I came to you, but you looked first. He turned away. Do you have any idea how that feels? To know that after everything, you could still think me capable of this? Cassian, please. I need some air. He grabbed his jacket. Don't wait up. After he left, Raina sat alone in his office, tears streaming down her face. Had she ruined everything with her doubts? Should she have simply thrown away the thumb drive without looking? But that didn't feel right either. Relationships needed honesty, transparency. She picked up the phone and called the one person who might be able to help. Martha, it's Raina. I need your advice. An hour later, Martha Chen sat across from her in the penthouse living room, reviewing the contents of the thumb drive. These are good forgeries, Martha said. But that's what they are, forgeries. Look at the metadata on these emails. The dates don't match the headers. And I was in that meeting, she pointed to one document, and this conversation never happened. Relief washed over Raina. So Cassian is innocent of financial crimes? Absolutely. Martha studied her face. But that's not your real question, is it? What do you mean? You want to know if he's genuinely in love with you, if there's some hidden agenda behind his proposal? Raina looked away. Is it so hard to believe he'd want me for me? Not for those of us who've watched you together. Martha's voice softened. Raina, I've known Cassian for 8 years. I've seen him with powerful, beautiful, wealthy women. I've never seen him look at any of them the way he looks at you. Then why would someone send me this? Who would want to drive us apart? Martha's expression grew serious. That's the real question, isn't it? Who benefits if you and Cassian split up? They spent the next hour creating a list of possibilities. Business rivals who might find Cassian distracted or vulnerable, former employees with grudges, jealous socialites who'd had their sights set on New York's most eligible bachelor. What about Jeremy Collins? Martha suggested. He had access to company files before he was fired, and he clearly had an interest in you. But he's gone. Security escorted him out months ago. That doesn't mean he couldn't still hold a grudge. Or be working for someone else now. The sound of the elevator interrupted them. Cassian stepped out, his expression still guarded but calmer than when he'd left. Martha, he said, surprised, what are you doing here? Helping Raina figure out who's trying to sabotage your relationship. Martha gathered her things. And now that you're back, I'll leave you two to talk. After she left, silence stretched between Raina and Cassian. Finally, Raina spoke. I'm sorry, she said softly. I should have trusted you completely. Cassian sighed, the last of his anger seeming to drain away. No, I overreacted. Of course you had questions. He moved to sit beside her. I forget sometimes that all of this is new to you. The wealth, the scrutiny, people with hidden agendas, I've lived with it for so long, it's second nature to me. That doesn't excuse my doubts. Maybe not. But I understand them. He took her hand. Raina, I've never been more honest with anyone than I've been with you. Every word in those notes was true. Every promise I've made is one I intend to keep. I believe you. She squeezed his hand. But someone is trying very hard to make sure I don't. Martha thinks it might be Jeremy. Cassian frowned. It's possible. He had access and he clearly wanted you for himself, or at least wanted you to think he did. We need to find out for sure, before they try something else. We will. He pulled her close. Together. The next morning, Cassian called an emergency meeting with his head of security, James Donovan. A former FBI agent, Donovan was thorough and discreet, exactly what they needed. The files were delivered by a courier service, Donovan reported after a preliminary investigation. Paid in cash, no record of the sender, but the digital fingerprints are interesting. They match the signature of some files we found on Collins's computer after he was terminated. So it was Jeremy, Raina said. Possibly. Or someone using the same software he used. Donovan looked grim. Either way, this is more than just a jilted admirer. The level of detail, the quality of the forgeries, this took resources, time, expertise. Someone's backing him, Cassian concluded. But who? The answer came 3 days later when Donovan burst into Cassian's office, his normally composed demeanor shaken. You're not going to believe this, he said, placing a folder on Cassian's desk. Collins has been working for Catherine Blake. Cassian went completely still. Catherine, are you sure? Positive. They've been seen together multiple times in the past month, and there's more. She's writing a book, an expose on Ward Enterprises. Collins was planted here to gather information. Raina felt a chill run down her spine. And when that didn't work, they tried to drive a wedge between you and Cassian, Donovan finished, hoping you'd take the evidence to the authorities or the press. Where is she now? Cassian asked, his voice dangerously calm. That's the other thing. She's called. A press conference for tomorrow morning. Says she has shocking revelations about you and the company. For the first time since Raina had known him, Cassian looked truly shaken. She won't stop until she's destroyed everything I've built, everything I care about. Then we stop her. First, Raina said firmly. That night they formulated a plan. It was risky, but if it worked, it would discredit Catherine and Jeremy once and for all. By morning, everything was in place. Catherine Blake's press conference was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, a block from Ward Enterprises. The room was packed with reporters, cameras flashing as Catherine took the podium, Jeremy standing smugly at her side. 3 years ago, I tried to warn the world about Cassian Ward, Catherine began, her perfectly made-up face a mask of concern. About his business practices, his treatment of employees, his ruthless approach to competition. I was silenced, threatened, my reputation destroyed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of journalists. Today I have proof. She held up a thumb drive, identical to the one sent to Raina. Documented evidence of Ward Enterprises' illegal activities, spanning 5 years. Tax evasion, bribery, stock manipulation. That's a serious accusation, Ms. Blake. The voice came from the back of the room. Heads turned as Raina walked down the center aisle, Cassian beside her, Martha and Donovan following with several police officers. Ms. Holloway, Catherine said, her composure slipping slightly. How unexpected. I thought it might be, Raina replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Especially since you sent me those same forged documents 3 days ago, hoping I'd turn against Cassian. Catherine's eyes narrowed. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Cassian moved forward. Just like you don't know Jeremy. Collins? The man you hired to infiltrate my company and spy on me? That's ridiculous, Jeremy sputtered. I've never even met Ms. Blake before joining forces with her last week. Really? Donovan stepped forward, playing a video on a tablet. It showed Jeremy and Catherine entering an apartment building together, dated 6 months earlier, before Jeremy was hired at Ward Enterprises. And then there's this, Martha added, distributing folders to the journalists in the front row. Financial. Records showing payments from Blake Media Consulting to Jeremy Collins over the past year. phone records showing dozens of calls between them, and a manuscript, the first 3 chapters of Ms. Blake's supposed exposé, dated before Collins ever set foot in Ward Enterprises. Chaos erupted in the room as reporters began shouting questions. Catherine's face drained of color as she realized her carefully constructed plan was unraveling. "You set me up," she hissed at Cassian. "No, Catherine, you did that all by yourself." He turned to the officers. "I believe creating and distributing forged financial documents with intent to defame constitutes several felonies, not to mention corporate espionage." As the officers moved toward Catherine and Jeremy, Rayna stepped forward, facing the press directly. "Cassian Ward is not perfect," she said, her voice carrying across the now quiet room. "He's demanding, sometimes difficult, often too focused on work. But he's also honest, ethical, and committed to using his resources to help those in need. The Ward Foundation has provided medical care to thousands of families, has funded research into treatments for diseases other companies consider unprofitable, has created opportunities for people who would otherwise be overlooked." She took Cassian's hand. "That's the man I'm going to marry, the man I love, and no amount of lies or manipulation will change that." The photograph of them standing together, hands clasped as Catherine and Jeremy were led away, made the front page of every newspaper in New York. "Ward and fiancé triumph over blackmail attempt," read the headlines. For once, the press portrayed them as they truly were, partners facing adversity together. 2 months later, on a perfect spring day, Rayna stood in a small room at the back of the Riverside Gardens, wearing a simple white gown that made her feel like the princess she'd never dreamed of being. Through the window, she could see 50 or so guests gathered on the lawn, waiting for the ceremony to begin. "Ready?" Martha asked, adjusting Rayna's veil. "More than ready." Rayna took a deep breath. "I just wish my mother could be here." "She is, in a way." Martha squeezed her hand. "In your heart, in the foundation work you do in her name." The music began, not the traditional wedding march, but a gentle melody that Cassian had chosen specially. As Rayna walked down the aisle, her eyes found his, standing tall and handsome in his tuxedo, watching her with such naked adoration that her heart nearly burst. When she reached him, he took her hands in his eyes never leaving hers. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "So do you," she whispered back, making him smile. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They had written their own vows. Cassian's eloquent and moving, Rayna's straightforward and sincere. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Cassian's kiss was tender, reverent, a promise sealed before witnesses. At the reception, held in the same gardens, Cassian led Rayna to the center of the dance floor for their first dance as a married couple. "Happy?" he asked, echoing the question he'd asked her months ago at the gala. "Completely," she answered, her arms around his neck, "though I still sometimes wonder if this is all a dream." "If it is," he said, repeating his words from that night, "I don't want to wake up." As they moved together to the music, Cassian pulled her closer, his lips near her ear. "I have something for you," he murmured, "a tradition I'd like to start." From his pocket, he produced a small envelope, the same cream stationery she'd come to associate with his notes. Rayna opened it, curious. Inside, she found a new note. "To my wife, on our wedding day. Before you, I lived in shadows of my own. Making. You brought light, you brought warmth. You brought hope when I'd forgotten what it felt like. Today marks the beginning of our story, one we'll write together, one day at a time, one page after another. With you, I am more than I ever thought I could be, and I see all of it. The beauty, the strength, the quiet grace that defines you, today, tomorrow, always. Yours in every way that matters, Cassian." Tears filled Rayna's eyes as she looked up at him. "It's perfect, I thought," he said softly, "that on each of our anniversaries I could write you a new note, a reminder of how much you mean to me, how much you've changed my life." "I'd like that." She touched his face gently. "And maybe sometimes I'll write one for you too." His smile was tender, his eyes filled with promise. "I look forward to reading every word. As the sun set over the gardens, casting golden light across the celebration, Raina and Cassian moved together in perfect harmony, surrounded by friends who had become family, wrapped in the love they'd found in the most unexpected of places. Their story had begun with anonymous notes, with words hidden in shadows, but it would continue in the light, honest, open, and real. A love letter written day by day, year by year, in the language of shared dreams and quiet moments, of challenges faced together and triumphs celebrated as one, signed always with love.